Well, hello. Welcome to WeatherBrains 626. It's the pre-show, a marvelous time where we go wild. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and occasionally say very outrageous things. Many show titles are derived here. We learn a lot here. Some say this is the best part of this program, the pre-show. So we've got Bill and Brian on the line with us here. Gents?
Some say the end is the best part of the program. Okay.
That too. The pre-show and the very end.
And you must be having bandwidth issues.
Really?
Yeah, because you're really jerky.
Choppy? Yeah, you are. So I thought it was me.
No, very choppy. You're very choppy, James.
Really?
Switch to my 5G.
Yeah.
Well, poo-poo. Let's see. Speedtest.net. Go.
But I'm on my 5G, so I don't know if I was affecting it somehow.
You're a little bit choppy too, but
I'm getting 60.
You sound clear as a bell to me. You sound great, Brian. James,
yeah. James sounded good. It's just the video was choppy.
Oh.
So I'm getting 80 down, and up is about 10.
Well, that should be good, but you really are.
That should be sufficient.
Well, you're looking better, sir.
If only I was home. I got the big pipe.
Yeah.
Shoot, we could all do it from your house.
Yeah.
Bill, you sound Bill sounds like he's on the AM radio.
Yeah, hang on. I may not have switched over my settings yet. I was kind of in a rush here. We've had sick bay at the Murray household.
Oh, dear.
He sounds a little like AM radio. AM radio.
I'm trying to celebrate.
Well, I got to make sure you have the right dates. For filling in for me on the blog.
I hope it's this Saturday and Sunday. Is that right?
No, it's the next one, the 27th and 28th.
So
I hope that's not a problem.
I got to fly to Dallas. Let me see when that weekend is.
What's going on in Dallas? Something exciting?
Kind of. I want to say it's the 17th and 18th. I'm on this steering committee of the Alliance for Integrated Approaches to Extreme Environmental Events, which is actually
say what?
it sounds important, doesn't it? No, this could really be good. There's a lot of money available. It's funded well. And we are in the process of looking to hire the first executive director.
Oh.
And so we are going to do a fly-in to Dallas-Fort Worth and interview some face-to-face candidates.
Is that
hopefully
this Wednesday and Thursday?
No, it's the 17th and 18th of February. Next month. It's a weekend. And obviously, I told him I can't take any weekdays off, no time off from work. It's ratings, but it just somehow worked out for everybody for the 17th and 18th. So those weird deals where you fly into the airport, you go into a hotel and do your business and fly back. So that's about it. But
sounds like a boondoggle to me.
Boondoggle trip. Guess I'll fly Delta or United since it's a DFW. Southwest goes to Love. Dallas Love Field. No, my favorite place in Texas to fly through is Houston Hobby. They got the greatest cheap Chinese food place in America.
Panda Express?
And one of the greatest pizza places, too.
Okay.
It's
one of my kids.
I think it's called the let me see what the name of that place is. It's right there in the middle. It's not a big airport. I mean, it's kind of like they're in the middle.
By the way, your video has settled down, James. You're not choppy now.
That's good.
What is the name of this place? Oh, we'll figure it out later.
But anyway, I won't be going through Houston Hobby for a while, so.
If I have a choice of going through Dallas Love Field or Houston Hobby, like if I'm going to Oklahoma City, I make that run a lot. Yeah. I always choose Houston exclusively for that good, cheap Chinese. I don't know.
We all have our price.
It's just very strange. And I used to love Midway Airport in Chicago, and they took out my favorite restaurant there, Harry Carey's. They had a Harry Carey's in there.
They took it out?
It's like gone. The last time I was in there, it was just gone. I said, what? It's been there forever.
Yeah.
So, but they've got, what's that place called? Nuts on something.
Oh,
Nuts on Clark.
Nuts on Clark. That's it.
Yeah, the original Nuts on Clark, it's out there by Wrigley Field, but they've got one in the Midway now. And man, if you talk about popcorn and it's
good stuff. Yeah, you're going to make me hungry.
It's addictive. So
show title Nuts on Clark.
Nuts on Clark. But it takes the sting off of the Harry Carey's being gone. So I wonder how many people have sent me milk and bread aisle pictures tonight.
I don't know, but they're popping up all over the place.
Yeah, I actually went to the Publix, which is our local supermarket here, because in case, Brian, we get stuck. I bought a bunch of junk because remember the last time during the Snowmageddon we had nothing.
Yes,
and we finally made it to a Walgreens, and it took like probably 90 minutes, and it's only a couple of blocks away.
Yeah,
and
but you didn't have you didn't have your number one ace 4-wheel drive snow ice chauffeur. So we made it down there, and it was like we had climbed Mount Everest. And we got in there, and there were like 30 people sleeping on the floor. So we tiptoed around the people sleeping and cleaned them out. I think we spent about $500 in there. So I went to the Publix tonight. And let's see what he bought.
No, we'll show you later. I got a bunch of junk.
What happened to the popcorn I brought in there? Did you eat it all?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay. That's fine. I ate some of yours, so it's okay.
I do have new bags of popcorn here.
Hey, that nice popcorn at Walgreens is actually pretty good.
No, it's addictive. I mean, once
it really
start, you just can't stop.
Yeah, I was hungry coming out of Tuscaloosa, and I stopped at Target and bought some of that, except it was another brand. And then I ended up eating the whole bag between Tuscaloosa and Birmingham.
and the bag happens.
Yeah.
All right.
So, Rick, what are you sending us? What are you sending us? You got any freezing rain or snow out there?
We just have cold and wind here. We've got no precip here in this part of the state. It's all east of here, and you can have it.
The Memphis radar looks pretty good. Looks like it should be snowing in Memphis now. And
yeah, I've been seeing reports of mixture of sleet and snow, and looks like that should be transitioning over to all snow. And I know that'll make a lot of people happy over there.
It looks like Little Rock's getting some pretty good snow. They're first, I think, of the season. So we'll see. This is an interesting little case study. Everything is shut down here. Everything is shut down here tomorrow because of memories of what happened 4 years ago, the Snowmageddon thing. And we'll talk about that when the show starts. But I think it's the right thing to do. People are still reeling from that day. And with the 30s involved, I think it's the right thing. You get a 4-day, so many of our school outages because of the flu. It'll give kids another day to hopefully heal up a little bit. So, but yeah, it's been a busy day, man. The tweeters and the face bag are running wild. I like the timing. I mean, for us, where we are, it looks like it's going to start midday, which means that Brian and I can kind of relax a little bit before it starts and not have to get up at 3 a.m.
I was so thankful you said 8 to 9 instead of 3 to 4.
Yeah, no. We gotta save you for my shows tomorrow night. There's nothing happening during the early morning show, and I'll just put some video behind me on the green wall tomorrow morning at my house, so it'll look like I'm out in it. This morning, I stole some Siberia snow video.
That was a great shot behind you.
And put that back there, and had on the I had on the 3340 toboggan for the Facebook Live. But anyway, we'll get through this.
I just wondered if anybody heard you say, "I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding."
Probably not.
Probably not. They saw that picture back there.
Well, the people that saw you go into Publix buying milk and bread really had a cow.
Yeah, there was such a mass panic in there. I don't think they noticed it was me. I'm kind of dressed down right now, so.
Well, I knew when I pulled up at 3:00 at the Publix in Vestavia, and the parking lot was completely full. It was going to be a long trip to the grocery store.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. And what was bad, I got to the checkout thing and I left my wallet in my car, and they don't take the watch. See, I'm used to the watch because everywhere I go, you just put your watch on the on the thing and it pays for it. But they don't have that at this place. So I made a wild dash because there was lines. Oh, and I mean, I was running like Forrest Gump.
All right.
And I got back.
We basically just giving you your stuff for free, James. Just because of the weather forecast.
Aubrey,
I finally got the invite out.
I just finished my Facebook Live.
Yeah,
I bet yours is a lot prettier than his was.
No kidding.
Well,
There's no doubt.
Our numbers, I looked, and we went from 5 people to like 227 instantly. I was like, good grief.
Wow.
We've got snow on the way.
It's crazy. I did one at the house this morning about 7:30, and man, so many people are watching that now. Allegedly, this is the week Facebook changes their algorithm for the news feed to de-emphasize our products, the content from pages, and to focus more on pictures and personal stuff. And this is such an anomaly. I don't know if you can really judge it. I haven't noticed any big difference today. The numbers are still fairly high, but yeah, they still seem to prioritize Facebook Lives coming from pages. So the ones I've done today did well. I did one at 5:30 here Central. Actually, it was done through the 3340 switcher, and it was done on their page. I just linked to it, but let's see if I can get the number of views on that one.
So what's Kevin out for? He just said he's out.
87,500.
Wow.
I don't know. We what's funny, Bill, we had no guests last week. It was just us. And
no Kim?
No, we had nobody from the AMS.
Really?
Yep. They couldn't get a lot. Look, Rick, you know how bad it is. I mean, it's dark. There's a million people. It's noise. You just, if you make it happen, you make it happen. If you don't, you don't. But we certainly knew that it was not a good situation.
It wasn't anything like having Bill or Brian there with their high-tech setups and microphones. I mean, we were going to try and dial in on something on an iPhone, and they had a Twitter mixer that evening, and we went and tried to. Kim and Nate and I were all there, and we were going to try to join in, and we found out pretty quickly the environment was not conducive to provide you with broadcast quality audio or video. So
yeah,
those things are tough.
Kevin,
they really are.
Aubrey was here, and I was here, and Brian, and I thought it was fun.
We had a nice discussion.
It was a great show.
Those
I was
sometimes
in the loudest place in North America in that Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta.
So what's the jewel box?
Well, hey, let me welcome our television viewers. I forgot to do that. Welcome. This is the pre-show, so thank you for watching, and we'll start here in a second. Yeah, Bill, tell us about this upscale luxury box. We have some nosy personal questions.
Well, I wasn't complaining. We had decent seats in section 229, which was right on the other side from where the winning touchdown was. So, but the Georgia fans outnumbered the Alabama fans at least. I don't know, 2.5, 3 to 1, I would think conservatively.
Wait, I thought you were in a luxury box.
Oh no. We had great tickets. I was not complaining. And
didn't he say that, Brian?
You sent some sort of email that said you were going to be in a jewel box.
Jewel
that's
box.
what they call the stadium. That's what they call the stadium.
Oh,
because it looks like a jewel box.
Okay,
you've been there, James.
No, I've not been to the new stadium yet. So
I haven't been
there.
there.
The social metrics.
I'll drive you over, James, when you need a chauffeur to take you over there.
Yeah.
Hello,
I'm
Kurt.
still not on there. I'm mad at those people. I'm going to boycott them.
I don't know where Brock and Mark are. They've got the invite too. I hope they'll join us here shortly.
Number one.
And second place is so far back.
Who's number two? Who's number two?
JP is number 2 at Channel 6, and then Wes Wyatt's number 3, Jill Gallardi number 4, Janice Rogers 5, Alex Finney, don't know who that is, number 6. Here comes Mike Dubberly, Mark Prater number 8, Rick Carley number 9, Claire Huddleston number 10. But it changes every hour, so it means, I don't know, just something to play with. So are we ready here, Bill? You want to roll it, or we want to wait for a second, or
wait for 1 second? We're not getting Mark Taylor and Brock for some reason, and that worries me. I'll text Brock real quick. And why don't I just go call them? Y'all talk amongst yourselves for another moment, and I'll be right back.
So they did a hit piece on get my show notes up here. Just here. Hey, Kurt, can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir. How you doing tonight?
Good. You sound good.
Thanks, Aubrey.
No problem.
Thanks, already got yours.
Hey, Brian, James, how much do you guys average a year snow in your region? Is it like a half an inch? Is it actually an inch?
Brian's our WCM.
I think the average, is if you go over a long enough period is like 3 inches. But that doesn't happen every year.
Yeah,
right.
it's skewed by big events from time to time, like the blizzard of '93.
Yeah,
but I'd say in an average year, you get an inch or two if you're lucky.
I think that's probably the issue with you guys down there is it's not 3 inches isn't where while it might be the average, it's not necessarily the norm.
Right.
Yeah,
we're very erratic in winter. What I'm worried about down here, we have not had an ice storm, and I mean a classic southern crippling ice storm in years and years, and those are big, nasty.
What was the last one? 82?
Well, we had, if you remember, we had one in '96. February of '96 was pretty good. But the '82 was the last catastrophic ice storm, and that's a long time ago.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, that was totally catastrophic. That was horrible. But this thing tomorrow is very interesting. It's got a lot of similarities as Snowmageddon, which fouled everything up down here in Birmingham and Atlanta in 2014. We might wind up with a half inch of snow, but ice on the roads. And I mean not snow, but ice, because we were in the low 50s today, which warmed the asphalt. The snow falls, it melts, and will be brutally cold tomorrow. And you get a flash freeze where you've got just ice, pure ice everywhere. And within a matter of minutes, you're fishtailing and cars are off the road. And we didn't just grasp that very well in 2014, and we botched the impact forecast. So after that, and a lot of fair warning, everybody's off tomorrow here. Everybody's taking the day off, except for me and Brian.
Yes, and I can see it now.
Other people.
Please, everybody, this is James Spann at ABC 3340. Stay off the roads. Now let's go out to Brian, who's on the roads.
Yeah. Let's go to this one bonehead who's on the roads.
Absolutely.
That'll
be me. Got to get you some new material, James.
I know. So we're going to give it about 2 more minutes, and we're going to get started. And I will be I'll warn you guys, I'll be slightly distracted tonight because the new model stuff is starting to come in. And the new upper air data is in, which I have not looked at. To me, the most interesting thing is the OZ upper air data now. Forget this model business. Just look at the actual observations.
Okay.
And
holy mackerel. Wow. I'm looking at it right now.
What are we looking at? I need to know.
It's below zero from 900 millibars up.
Yeah. Is that the Birmingham sounding?
Yes, and there's a huge difference between temperature and dew points. So that as the temperature will head towards the wet bulb, we're going to see it get even colder.
Oh, and what you need to do now is pull up that and go pull one up from January like 27th of 2014, and that'll be very interesting. So
I don't Bill, have a historic site for soundings.
That could be a good pick of the week.
That could.
Bill, are we all here?
Gang's all here. Thank you, James.
All right, let's roll this sucker here because we got to get on the road. So here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains, episode number 626. This is the weekly show all about weather. This is for the 15th of January, 2018. Kicking off this new year with the lovely Aubrey Urbanowitz in Harrisonburg, Virginia. You are gearing up for a little snow, are you?
Yes, we are. 1 to 3.
Woo! Now, so to tell us about the social science end of this. How do people react there for 1 to 3 inches of snow in a forecast?
They freak out completely. It's like Atlanta, but it's in Virginia. No, it's really interesting. We have plows, we have salt, we have the equipment. And we average, 20 to 25 inches a year, which is, maybe not typical every year, but we get some big snows. You know what I think it is? I think everyone is just turned into a wuss. They know schools are going to close. They want their business to close. And everyone's like, oh my God. So everyone just turns into a big wuss so they can stay at home and not do anything. That's what I think it is.
Okay.
That's about it.
How do you spell wuss? That's going to be the show title.
Yeah, that is a show title, by the way.
Well, once you get all the schools closed, then all the kids are happy. So, they don't care whether it snows or not after that.
Not just kids, the teachers. Oh my gosh, if they don't get a snow day, I am the most hated person if they don't get a snow day, the teacher.
But we've got it down to a fine art down here. So the governor declares a state of emergency, which enables the schools, they don't have to make up the day they miss tomorrow. So
I didn't know that. That's good information to know. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the reason you see that's emergency declaration. There's probably but it's all about logistics and stuff like that. So where we are down here in the Deep South, we're pretty much shut down tomorrow, and memories of many of Snowmageddon are in their mind, which happened in 2014 and really created some unbelievable situations in Atlanta and Birmingham, where the forecasters really got the forecast pretty right, but they got the impact really wrong, and that's all that matters. And we had thousands and thousands and thousands stranded on interstates. They were getting cold and hungry, and it was a humanitarian crisis, and we botched it. And so this time, with 2014 being somewhat of an analog, nobody's taking chances, so we're all shut down. Brian Peters, I think Brian, are you shut down tomorrow? But wait a minute, you're working with me tomorrow.
I hope not.
That was your signal to take the day off, Brian. You better hang on.
Oh, I get the day off tomorrow. Hallelujah.
No, Brian's got the fun job of being in a station vehicle out in the ice.
Give me 4-wheel drive and I can go anywhere.
But this vehicle performed extremely well during Snowmageddon, so we're hoping it does the same. So Brian will be out in it, and
as I tell people, I only went into the ditch 6 times in Snowmageddon. All of them on purpose. Because people had slid around so much, blocking the roads. The only way you could get around is go into the ditch and get around them. So yeah, I don't think with all this closings going on, James, I'm going to have to do that tomorrow.
No, I pulled up some video of that 2014 deal, and it is surreal to look back on that. It's just unbelievable how bad it was.
I remember you guys talking about it on here, and we were talking to Brian, and you guys were talking about how with such cold temperatures, it just, flurries or just the light snow, and it was just instant ice.
Yeah. What happens, like in this case, today it was 52, and the asphalt is warm, and it retains some of the heat. And so tomorrow we'll be in the 20s, maybe even low 20s, and it starts to snow. But because of the warm infrastructure and the asphalt, the snow melts initially. And then you have a flash freeze within no time. Yeah. That water is ice, and it's just a glaze of ice on roads, and people are fishtailing. They're going off in ditches. It's just horrible. So, it's and people. That's the thing up north. They're saying, "What are you knuckleheads doing? Closing for 1 inch of snow?" But it's ice, not snow, that's the concern. And in 2014, we were shut in here for days. It was horrible. But Bill, bring in our guest. My eye is starting to twitch talking about 2014.
I was so busy over here trying to get all my stuff straightened out. So did we introduce Rick? Did he get introduced?
No, Rick. He's back from AMS. We need to debrief Rick on AMS. Rick, how was it?
It was great. I'm glad to be back. I hated we couldn't dial in last week. We made a valiant effort, but it just wouldn't have been very high quality material, I don't think. But I got to see Nate last week. Nate is not too big to talk to the little people, so I actually chatted with him for a little bit. So Nate is alive and well and says hello. And of course, Kim was there, and it was a really good meeting. And I think Kim is out tonight with, I don't know, a lot of people seem to get sick at the AMS meeting. I've, knock on wood, I've escaped that so far, but it was a great meeting. A lot of people. I think it was over 4,000 people there in attendance. Lots of good presentations. Too many things going on. They combined the broadcaster with the annual meeting. So at one time I counted 40 things going on simultaneously, which leads to frustration. And there's an interesting thread on Twitter that Nate started. How many steps did people take while they were at the AMS? And people walked miles and miles and miles. So I could go on, but it was a great meeting. I was glad to get to go, and we can talk more about it in detail later on if you want to.
Well, we'll do that.
But Bill, go ahead. Bring in our guests.
Yeah, 1 week ago tonight, I was in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, and someone sent a disparaging email I saw somewhere around 8 o'clock that it was raining inside the dome on my Alabama Crimson Tide, but we got the last laugh before it was over with. So anyway, a week ago tonight, I couldn't have heard you if I'd tried. That stadium was so loud. It was unbelievable. But with all this talk about snow, we're going to talk about surf forecasting tonight, of all things. But we got several great guests. WeatherBrains. We'll start off with Mark Taylor. He's the vice president of business development for Weatherbell. And Mark, we use your product all the time.
Awesome. Good to be
here. Where are
you
you coming to us from tonight? That's going to be the big $64,000 question for everybody. Where are you coming to us from?
North side of Atlanta. So we're kind of on the snow watch here. Like Aubrey was mentioning earlier, and James mentioned a few years ago, we of course had the snowmageddon here as well. So, and everybody's a little freaked out. Even a little snow with cold ground can make a mess here. So we're kind of waiting and watching. So we'll see what happens.
Well, good luck with that. What was your take on AMS, Mark?
It was, I think the same. It was. I didn't see a lot of broadcasters. More of the university, the educators, researchers. But it was good for us. We made a lot of good contacts, made some announcements, got to see folks, got to see Nate Johnson as well. Got to see Nate in his new role at NBC. So I think it was, all in all, it was pretty good for us. But it's just saying that there were so many sessions and so many things going on that it was difficult to kind of navigate, where you wanted to be and to fit everything in. So, I would echo that, what I heard from folks.
Well, I was sad that I wasn't there, but it was great following all the great tweets coming out of there. Thanks for setting the show up tonight. Mark, you and I talked at the Flash Conference in October in Atlanta, and this show came out of that, one of those breakfasts there. And So,
yeah, the flash conference here, exactly. So it's good to be here. James and I think have collaborated or worked together. I don't know, James, what, 25 years plus? I don't even know.
We first met when we were like 12 years old. So yeah, it's been 25 years.
I was going to say 11. I think we were just out of our big wheels at that point. So
yeah.
And here we are back again.
Mark,
but go ahead, Jim.
You were nice enough to invite Dr. Brock Burghardt from your firm. He's a meteorological developer for you guys. And Brock, where are you joining us from tonight?
So I'm joining from Park City, Utah. I work remotely for Weatherbell Analytics, and couldn't have picked a better place.
Well, I would have to agree. So did you pick that place for skiing or for any other purpose or anything you can share?
So I primarily chose it for mountain biking, actually. Skiing was kind of a second perk, which, everyone's talking about snow on the East Coast. We would love to see a reversal of this pattern across the U.S. and send this trough out west. We're struggling out here for snowpack. Everyone's telling me it's the worst in 30 years. So there's some skiing, but we're looking for more snow out here.
So even worse than the year leading up to the Olympics?
That's what I'm being told. We've had a few storms here. A lot of the bases of the mountain resorts are still getting rain with these latest storms. So at the top of the mountains, they're doing a little bit better, but they're struggling to keep a consistent snowpack pace at these resorts. So it's been a struggle. A lot of the tourists have kind of been shutting away from coming out here, or they're going further north where the better snowpack is. So it's been interesting to kind of watch that unfold, being out here.
Well, they will be in town in great force this next weekend with the big film festival coming, huh?
That's right. Yeah, I think they're already starting to filter buzz that started out Park City with that coming up now.
Well, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. But thank you for being with us tonight. We're going to be looking forward to talking to you. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And Kurt Corte is the lead forecaster for Surfline. So now we tie in the surf forecasting. Kurt, where are you coming to us from?
I am on the Outer Banks of North Carolina in a town called Kill Devil Hills. I'm about a mile away from where the Wright brothers flew their first flight.
Wow. And
so we have an office here on the Outer Banks. The director of forecasting and myself and a few other forecasters have a small satellite office here. And our main office is based out of Huntington Beach in California.
Well, let's spend some time talking with you, and then I'm going to circle back around. I want to hear some of, and Mark, you and Brock join in too. I know there's some synergies between you guys, but talk about Surfline for a moment. Brock, what's what is that? Who are your clients? What are you forecasting for?
So we were founded in 1985. Our founder is a guy named Sean Collins, who passed away a few years ago. But we actually, our main mantra is basically making surfers' lives better. So basically what we try to do is surfers or ocean enthusiasts in general, giving them the tools they need to know, when to go to the beach, how good the surf's going to be, what tools they should do, maybe, skipping work on occasion, getting a little bit of a cough and deciding that, it's time to go get a couple waves. So we kind of help them along with that. And we've been doing it for, 32 years or 33 years now. And we have a team of 10 meteorologists that work full time. And, we don't have state of emergencies. We're working 365 days a year, waking up every morning and giving observations of the surf and delivering forecasts for locations around the world. We're based out of North America, but we do have employees in Europe and other locations around, pretty much everywhere. So if you asked me what the surf was going to be like in South Africa, I could tell you just as easily as what it's happening across the street here.
So Kurt, are you guys working out of multiple offices, but is where you are headquarters?
No, sir. The headquarters is in Huntington Beach in California, right there at the pier. So they have a little bit nicer view than we have here on the Outer Banks a lot of times. But
I've been there. It's the nicest, best office in the world. It's unbelievable. It's like not being at work.
Yeah, I have a hard time out there because I'm constantly looking at the surf.
So how did it start? Because I think it's a fascinating niche that you guys are filling.
So again, it goes back to Sean Collins, and he was a very avid he did a lot of sailing up and down through Baja and up into Southern California, and a lot of surfing. And like several of, if you ask some of the Surfline forecasters why we got interested in weather and surfing, it goes back to surfing and basically finding time out of our busy schedules to get that, those good waves and maybe have no one else there, so you can kind of surf by yourself. So what Sean did was he developed a way of understanding basically when Southern Hemisphere storms that are occurring in the South Pacific off of New Zealand would be sending swell up to his favorite waves in Baja. And he would basically just disappear for a couple of days and go down there and surf some of his favorite waves with just a group of friends, because he had discovered basically, how long it took those swells to propagate all the way up into Southern California or Mexico. And he was able to forecast really before anybody was doing it in the 70s and into the 80s, and then made the decision to make a company.
And so who were some of those first clients? I mean, are you talking about surf shops? Did they subscribe and put the information out, or did individuals get it via fax or something? How did it happen?
So initially we had a group of observational, surfers would pretty much go down to the beach, and Sean would call them on like pay phones around the area and say, what's the surf like? And they would tell him, and then he would compile all that information. And we had a 976 number that mostly Southern California surfers could call and get the latest observations. And then also a forecast, rather primitive at the time, I guess, but also revolutionary because no one else was doing it. So it started with a 976 surf number. And from there we had wave fax. And then we moved on with the internet age and started surfline.com. And webcams, and there's a whole different team. It's not just the meteorologist. We have a science team. We have wave modelers. We have an editorial team. Full little company, telling people when to surf.
So how many total employees?
Over 80 now.
Wow.
And we have
so Sean wasn't a meteorologist, I guess. He was just a surf enthusiast.
By training, no, he was not. He was a self-taught forecaster. And a lot of the stuff that he learned is, there's a lot of stories of him sitting up on the roof of his parents' house, counting waves as they came in and counting sets, and then kind of hindcasting and basically figuring out where do those waves come from, what caused those waves, how long it took him to get to his location, why the sets were, there was 6 waves in one set and the next set may have 8 waves, and kind of reverse engineering that and trying to figure out how it all happened and what it all meant. And then that combined with his experience on the water with sailing really gave him, the knowledge that maybe you can't pick up in a book kind of thing. So he was an incredible guy to talk to. I mean, he would give you a couple crumbs and kind of lead you on the trail, but then would kind of stop and you had to, figure out the rest of it on your own kind of thing. So he was a very special guy.
So talk about some of the basics of wave forecasting for some of us who are not real familiar with that part of it.
So one of the more difficult things that we have to deal with is obviously we're looking over the oceans and our observations are so incredibly sparse. But it's looking just at swell generation, you're looking at a fetch. So basically a set of winds that's pointed in the same direction with generally the same wind speed. So you have that fetch area. You have the wind speed. Obviously, the stronger the wind, the more energy that's transferred into the ocean, the bigger swells you can have, and also the longer periods you can have. So if we're looking at a forecast, we're looking at a storm, we're interested in how strong the winds are, how long they're blowing over a stretch of ocean, and where they're directed. So that's kind of the basic things to start with. And you have wave height, which is actually a measurement of the waves. If you think about a buoy out in the ocean bobbing up and down, that gives you a wave height. But then the distance between each individual wave is the swell period. And as that comes into shallow water, those variables can determine whether you're going to have a really good wave or a very, very bad wave. So we kind of use all that information to package it into simple message to our users.
And what are some of those variables that you have to sort out when you're talking about a specific location? Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, here on the Outer Banks, we face slightly north of due east. So if we were looking at a frontal system to say it's approaching and we have southerly winds that are occurring off the southeastern U.S. coastline, it's sometimes a pretty challenging forecast because you think that the swell that's being generated by those southerly winds are going to have a hard time wrapping into our beach, which doesn't face to the south. So you'll have some variables like that. You have bathymetry, which is the contours of the ocean, the bottom of the ocean, and how your bathymetry interacts with your swell periods and stuff can determine whether you have a very big wave or a good wave that's shaped perfectly, like Pipeline, I guess, on the north shore of Oahu in Hawaii is a great example of a wave that's shaped by the reef that's occurring underneath the ocean. So taking a look at the different swell directions and how they would impact certain stretches of coastline. In Southern California, a great example is you have the Channel Islands offshore. So as that swell comes in, you have kind of like a cheese grater effect of that swell hitting, and certain areas will be shadowed. And then you can travel 10 miles down the beach and it can be, 8-foot waves. So.
Yeah, that's amazing and cool stuff. So you guys forecast for a professional surf league, right? I guess it is the professional surf league.
Yes. So the World Surf League has a world tour, which is the top surfers that qualify, travel to 12 different locations around the globe. And we are the official forecasters for those events. Those occur, there's several in Europe. There's one in the United States, in Southern California at a break called Trestles, and Australia, Africa, all over the globe. And we do the forecast for those events. We also do the Big Wave World Tour, which is actually ongoing right now. One of our other forecasters had a meeting with them the other day because they were trying to decide whether they were going to run the event, because they have a pretty wide, basically event window where the conditions, obviously if you pick 2 days out of the whole winter, it might not be good enough to run a contest. So we coordinate with them over a 2-month event waiting period and give them an idea of when the best conditions are going to be.
So is that the event that's held in Hawaii, or is it moved all around the world, or what?
There's several that are held in Hawaii. The big one that's there is known as the Eddy. That's held at Waimea Bay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell about the background of that event a little bit.
So Eddie Aikau was a lifeguard at Waimea Bay, and one of the early chargers, and was a big influence there, not only keeping people safe and water safety, but he was one of the standout surfers as well. And the story with Eddie is they I know the history a little bit, but I don't know the exact words of it. Basically, they built a boat that was meant to mimic some of the Polynesian travelers from back in the day that would have traveled, from French Polynesia up into parts of Hawaii. And they wanted to recreate this and show that they could actually navigate using the stars and using this kind of ancient technology. And once they launched, they went for I think it was around a day, and they reached a really bad storm. And he decided that he would be able to, he had his board with him, so he decided he would be able to paddle back and try to get help in the middle of the storm. So as he paddled back, inevitably he was lost, and they actually found all the others still with the boat. So that kind of message of basically being selfless and doing everything he could to help people is kind of the message that's behind still the Eddy.
And so you guys are forecasting for that event too?
We that's not actually a WSL sanctioned event, but we do coordinate with some of the event directors with that to help them make the call on which days will be the best to run.
Yeah, because it doesn't happen every year necessarily, does it?
No, and actually this year they're not going to have it, but they only run under certain circumstances. It has to be a certain size for them to run. So as they say, the bay calls the day. Is basically what they say is, if it's not big enough, then we're not having it.
Wow. So what is that threshold? Do you know what it is?
I believe I want to say it's either 18 feet at 18 seconds or 20 feet at 20 seconds. I think off the top of my head is what the rough estimate of how big the buoy observations need to be.
Is it 20 seconds the period between the waves?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So the longer period that you have, there's more energy that's been transferred into the ocean via the storm and the winds. And that can also, as you have that long period energy that gets into the nearshore environment, you can actually see some significant refraction occur, and those wave heights significantly increase. So if you were to have, say, a 2-foot swell at 10 seconds, you may expect a wave that's somewhere between waist high and chest high or somewhere along in there. If you have a 2-foot swell at 20 seconds, it could be 10 feet or even bigger, depending on the bottom and the bathymetry in the area. So that's the kind of a lot of people look at the wave height and think, wow, it's so small, it's not going to be anything. But when you factor in that period, that's an extra variable that is very important.
And how much does the direction of the wind play into that?
Yeah, so as it comes for surfers, obviously you want favorable wind conditions. So in general, we want winds that are coming from the land and going offshore towards the ocean, because that gives a groomed face for you to actually surf. But then, as you get to a certain threshold of speed, say if it's 25 miles an hour, it's very difficult to paddle into 25 miles an hour with spray coming up into your face and all that. So that's definitely a variable that plays a role into the surfing conditions, and we factor that in when we're doing our forecast as well.
Okay. I would not have thought a wind from offshore would be the one you'd be looking for. I don't know. Somehow that just doesn't seem right. Learn something new.
So you're worried more about the storm generated type swell, right? Not just locally generated fetch over a shorter distance.
So that's actually, it's an interesting difference between our, the East Coast forecasters that are focused on the Atlantic, and especially along the East Coast of the U.S. A lot of our swell events are generated by storms that are occurring basically right over top of us. You're talking about the snowstorm that's going to come potentially through the south and the southeast. And I was looking at that today, but I was looking at a totally different angle of it. Basically, what kind of surf is it going to provide spots in the Northeast? Whereas if you look in the Pacific, if you're in Southern California, you may be looking at a storm that's occurring off the coast of, Chile, that's going to send waves up to you. So you're not directly impacted by any of the weather, and that swell as it travels away, can get groomed out and is a lot more organized than what we see over here is kind of the storm on top of us and the winds blowing and swirling and all that kind of thing. So it's a different type of forecasting. We're doing the same thing, but a lot of our stuff on the East Coast is, the storm hasn't actually occurred. We're actually predicting what the storm's going to do and then how that will apply to the surf that's generated.
So we do a lot of undertow forecasting or rip current forecasting for our beach locations along the Gulf Coast, and just a few tens of degrees of difference in the wind makes a huge difference in that thread, and certainly an onshore flow makes a big difference in the Gulf of Mexico. So I guess that's a little different on the East Coast, huh?
It's similar here. We actually work with the National Weather Service in several locations, and actually lifeguards throughout the U.S. To help improve some of those rip current forecasts. We have a network of cameras that's over 450 worldwide, and we use our partnerships with the National Weather Service to help not only educate people on possible rip current conditions, but also help verify forecasts that are issued by the various different weather offices.
So what tools are y'all using for your forecasting, Kurt? Or is it some of the national wave modeling type stuff? Is it all proprietary? What's going on with you guys?
Well, just like every other forecaster, I'm using pretty much any type of atmospheric weather model I can get my hands on to see what's happening out there and what I think is going to occur in the atmosphere. And then we have to translate that into what that's going to do for our surf. So the major model that's out there is NOAA's WaveWatch 3 model. It's a publicly available wave model that numerous sites actually repackage it and produce wave forecast. Surfline, we actually have our own Swell model that's run in-house. It's called LOLA, L-O-L-A. And we use some of the equations they're associated with WaveWatch 3, and then add some of our special kind of sauce that we've accumulated and the knowledge that we've gained over the 32 years of forecasting to kind of juice it in certain areas that need it and maybe pull it back some where we think it's getting a little too excited.
So how far out do you forecast for your clients?
So every day we do a 7-day forecast that is humanly produced. We basically give a wave height, a condition, a wind forecast, and we have a forecast discussion there that explains kind of what's going on and why things are occurring. Our forecast models, our swell models, go out 17 days. So that shows the various different swells that are out in the water. So if you're a surfer and you're out there, you may, as opposed to a boater doesn't necessarily care that there's 4 swells out there. One of them is really small and long period, one of them big and short period. They just know, like, hey, significant wave height, and is my boat going to tip over? And as a surfer, we may not be worried about what's occurring, that's moving away from us. So if I'm here on the East Coast and it's blowing northwest, really hard off of the northeast, and it's generating a swell that's heading away from me, I'm not really too concerned, as far as my surf is concerned, what that means, because it's not heading towards my beach. So we kind of we show all the different swell trains that are out there, because each one individually can mean something different for a beach that faces differently.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just amazing. So you forecast primarily for the Atlantic, I suppose. Are you forecasting for all the basins around the world?
I have forecasted for various locations. I actually was able to go to Tahiti for one of those World Surf League competitions. So it was very nice. It was I love the Outer Banks, and yes, it's 30 degrees and blowing 20 miles an hour right now, but I think I would trade it to go live in Tahiti for a while. So,
yeah, I was going to say that's not a bad assignment there.
No. They asked me if I wanted to go, and I think before they even finished the sentence, I was already looking at tickets. So
were you already a surfer, Kurt, before?
Yes, that's actually what got me started with it. I played a lot of sports when I was growing up as a kid, and as I transitioned into having to work and everything, I had to balance all that. And between the sports and the work and the school, and then still wanting to surf, I thought, well, if there's a way that I could figure out what the surf's going to be like for the next week or two, I can manipulate my schedule some, and then be able to go, surf. And so that's kind of where it started, was, watching the Weather Channel. I still have notebooks that have, when I was 8, 7, years old, writing down the coordinates and, what swells were coming from it and how the surf was each day, and all those kind of things that started at a young age, which I guess a lot of us do.
So find your passion and follow it, huh? That's got to be a strong part of your advice message.
Yes, it is. Follow your passion is actually one of Sean's big points of advice.
So Mark, you were awesome to get Kurt on the show tonight. And I know Brock is a mountain biker. Are you a surfer dude too?
Nah, I maybe have the hair for it, but I'm just not that cool. So it's kind of tough to follow Kurt on this one. So
yeah. Talk about your synergies. How you immediately recommended we have the Surfline guys on the show tonight. Back when we were talking in October. So talk about your connection with them.
Yeah, a couple of things. I just was going to add to what Kurt said. Surfline's got, I don't know, over 400 of these HD live cameras at these great surf locations. And Kurt, I remember last year during one of the storms, I think it was up in New Hampshire, in the blinding snow, there were guys out surfing in the snow. I remember that. And so I'm wondering if we'll get to see that this week, but I was kind of shocked. It didn't look too pleasant, but it's definitely some hardcore surfers out there. So I don't know if we'll get any this week, but I don't know if you saw that. I remember that last year. That was pretty shocking. So pretty passionate folks, I think, So.
Yeah, I mean, during that last storm, the water temperatures up there were in the mid to upper 30s. You had air temperatures with, in the teens or even less, with 15, 20 mile an hour winds. You can imagine what the wind chills were. And yeah, I mean, the equipment is good enough now where you can go out there and surf. It's definitely not the easiest thing to do, but there's definitely some passionate people.
I love it. Well, I think
is that passion or craziness?
Does it double for your polar bear swim for the year?
Gosh, I tell you, the ice cream headaches that you can get paddling out on a cold day, you really question why you're out there doing it. But
Tahiti sounds a lot better to me.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, no, it's good. And then Brock was on the slopes today skiing, so everybody's out in the cold weather. But yeah, I think from our standpoint, most people know Weatherbell from the public-facing website, Weatherbell Premium, our models pages and such. But then beyond that, we do a lot of precision weather forecasting and data services and decision support for a lot of vertical industries, as well as also the media space. And of course, one of the big things we do is having our modeling expertise with people lucky enough to have Brock on the team. So that plays nicely into some of the things we can do that are unique and custom from a modeling standpoint that could potentially work with Surfline on. As Kurt mentioned, they have their own proprietary Lola model, and they're experts in ocean and wave modeling and swell and bathymetry. And then there's certain types of model data that we can get access to and can also create and provide to Surfline to help them potentially enhance their products and work together to come up with something that's even better. So it's a potential nice collaboration for the two companies where we can really lend our expertise with what we do with folks like Dr. Brock, and then combine that with the long history of expertise that they have at Surfline. Like I said, we're not as cool as the Surfline guys. Well, I speak for myself. Brock probably is cooler than me, but we're trying. So it's exciting. It's kind of it's what we kind of do at Weatherbell. We're very focused on modeling and niche forecasting and being able to do things that are nimble and quick and unique, particularly as it relates to modeling and forecasting. So something like a collaboration with Surfline makes a lot of sense for both. We're excited about it.
So Brock, when I heard you were skiing today, I thought you were on vacation, but it turns out you were right there at home, huh?
Yeah, when it's right at your back door, it's a nice perk to have. So it's pretty easy for me to get out, even if it's just for an hour or two.
So tell us how you got interested in weather, Brock, and how that translated into a career.
Sure. So I probably have the most typical story of getting into weather for many meteorologists, at least kind of in my generation or age group. So I started really young when I was probably around 5 years old, and was kind of obsessed with watching winter storms develop in Wisconsin, where I grew up. And then, of course, the movie Twister came out, and that really grabbed my attention for severe weather. So I've kind of always been a little bit more of a severe weather guy ever since then, and completed my PhD at Texas Tech this past spring. So I was being in West Texas the last 4 years was fun for storm chasing, but really just to see a whole different scene of storm structures and environment that I had never seen up in the Midwest before. So that always motivated me, being down there to understand how we can better predict these things. It's really humbling to, work with the models. I've worked with, for instance, the WRF model a lot, and helping run a real-time WRF forecast system at Texas Tech. And, you think you'd have, the day figured out for a severe weather event. You go out and you're out there storm chasing, and it's, the system, everything evolves differently. And it's humbling, but it serves as motivation, do you have to look at the post-processing different? What do we have to do different with the models? So that's kind of, and I think that's common in the weather communities. You're always striving to improve, how can you add more value? And so that fit well with me coming to Weatherbell. And that's kind of how, we view our stance on models as trying to give the most, weather models and, the most maps available to our clients and partners. And I was kind of looking for, that extra edge. So we do a little bit of our own modeling, which we can provide that data for our customers. So I think that's kind of how I got into weather and how I found myself currently at Weatherbell.
So Brock, were you at AMS this past week in Austin?
I was, yes.
So talk about Dr. Usolini's, his keynote and what's going on in the computing side of the National Weather Service.
Yeah, so I will note, I did miss that. I believe that was that Sunday night or Sunday evening, if I'm not mistaken. So I had a bit of a flight delay, and I got in pretty late. So I believe I missed that. But I'm kind of familiar with at least a little familiar with what they're trying to do, and as we've seen the past 10 years, the improvements in computing power are remarkable, and it's kind of getting to the point that I wouldn't say it's competition or competing necessarily, but for instance, you have the European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasting improving their supercomputing capabilities. The United Kingdom Met Office is also doing that. So everyone these great computing capabilities, and it's really coming down to how do we want to utilize it. Is it just improving the resolution of these models? Is it running multiple models? Is it really putting it into data assimilation? And each one of these forecast services, including Ensemble, kind of has their different take on it. And I think there's some restructuring and rethinking of things with Ensemble and NOAA that I think is going in the right direction. We've had a lot of different experimental models provided by Ensemble, especially on what we call the convection allowing scale with grid spacings, in the order of 1 to 3 kilometers, and those have shown a lot of promise. I think one of the things that I'm most excited about is putting an ensemble perspective to that kind of resolution, and what kind of value that's going to give us. So it's exciting to see where that goes. It kind of goes back to the thing, always striving to improve. But so since I had missed that talk, if you have anything to add to that, I would be interested to hear.
Yeah, Rick, you were there, and I'm sure you got to hear that talk. Is there anything that you can add to that discussion about Dr. Usolini's about his topic?
Not really. I mean, I think that was a pretty good summary for not being there. I don't have much to add. Louis is always a good speaker and always has a lot of interesting things to say, and certainly an expert when it comes to modeling and all of that. So he's trying a lot of good things in the Weather Service and trying to increase the computing capability in the models and everything. So I don't have much to add to that.
Yeah. So Brock, when did you know that modeling was kind of your thing?
I think that started during my master's program, which I did at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And it was, it doesn't necessarily have to be whether you go the observational route or the modeling route. That's kind of always the two-way road, that you're going to choose when you go into graduate school in meteorology. But for me, modeling just made sense. It's just from a very young age. Even in high school, I like to look at weather models, and that really hasn't changed. So it's one of those things where it's just fascinating to look at the different solutions from all these different models, how they change with new updates, and trying to understand, why did a storm pan out the way it did. And that's just always been my calling. So it made sense for me from what I really like to calls practical predictability of especially severe weather events for me. I'm gonna go the modeling route, but there's certainly a lot of synergy with observations, obviously, to verify the models. But yeah, I guess modeling's always been a little bit more of my calling.
So what sort of advice do you have to some of our younger folks who, want to get into modeling other than just looking at them on the Weatherbell site, in terms of, creating them and actually, getting into the nuts and bolts of them? What can they do to get started?
Yeah, I would say, be ambitious. There's a lot of great tools out there. So I've been talking about the WRF model, the Weather and Research Forecasting Model, which is provided by NCAR, and it's very widely used in the academic community, but it's also very widely used from an operational standpoint. So because of that, there's a lot of documentation. There's multiple tutorials out there for running it, and that's kind of how I started. And there's forums, in which you can ask if you have difficulties doing that, but it's pretty rewarding to see step by step, what's going into the model, how you get, actually calculate the forecast, how the computer's actually doing it, and then how you want to work with actually showing what it is, because you'll get the raw data, And then it comes out to how do you actually want to post-process and show that. So, there's so many ways you can go about it. I think that's what makes it interesting. It's really endless opportunity. So I would say, don't, be afraid to go out there and try to do it yourself. You can, for instance, run the WRF model on most modern laptop computers or desktop computers, with the computing power we have now. So doing something like that, reaching out to those at some of the national labs or different meteorology departments, I myself or anyone I'm sure out there would be more than willing to provide advice or any help for anyone that wants to get into modeling. The resources out there now, even compared to 10 years ago, it's pretty remarkable. So I think makes it a little bit more easy to get started, but there's still a challenge to it. But I would just say, be ambitious and be versatile. There's other models coming out there now. For instance, we have what's called MPAS out of Aikau, which is a different dynamical configuration. But that's now available to download and run yourself. So there's a lot to do out there with modeling.
Well, you talk about being versatile. So how much of that, deciding what's the right percentage of coding in GIS and meteorology, to make up your, what your resume is?
Yeah, it's meteorology is a very technical field now. So, for instance, if you want to go get your master's degree or PhD, going through graduate school is going to require a fair amount of computer programming. And there's many different languages that are used. But I would say, since I started graduate school, the one computing language that's really caught traction is widely used is what's called Python. So, for any, ambitious, want to be, students that are, going into meteorology or considering graduate school or want to get into modeling, I always recommend look into Python, this computing language. It's very widely used in the meteorology community. So for that, it's well documented. There are a lot of different packages you can use within that are specifically developed for meteorological applications. So it actually makes it really easy to take your WRF output, for instance, and make maps from that. So I think that really bridges well with if you want to get into modeling, looking into WRF, but also looking into Python. And I think, from where we are in the meteorological community and going forward, just, from what I can gauge, anyone can chime in, having some degree of a technical component is very important. And it really seems like the field is really going the Python routes. That'd be, I say be ambitious. There's a lot of tutorials out there for Python too. Don't be afraid to, kind of toy around with that. And if you're applying for graduate school or applying for jobs, being able to have some level of ability to work with Python is huge, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just grabbed a Udemy course just to share with my 10-year-old, just to see what his reaction would be on Python last Friday night. And I can't get him to leave me alone now long enough to not do the next module, because he took to it immediately. I mean, just my computer science, from college was coming back to me in great waves. But it's really powerful when you can make a computer do your bidding. And,
absolutely,
you're living that every day. What's a typical day like for you, Brock, at work? I know there probably aren't any two that are alike, but what's sort of a general overview of what your days are like?
Yeah, so it's it's always something different. So largely what my role is maintaining some of our legacy products that we have, and always trying to advance those and improve those based upon what we feel internally should be improved, or what our customers and partners are wanting to see. We're always open to suggestions. In AMS, we get a lot of it. It's great. We have our customers, our partners coming up and say, we love your products, but we'd love to see this variable or this model. And, sometimes getting a new model in can take a little bit of time, but adding new variables is a little bit easier. But we love that input. So, maintaining the legacy products and improving those is largely what I do. But we always have, as Mark alluded to, we have a lot of, back-end operations for data solutions that is always requiring some development. So I would say it's probably half maintaining what we have and improving that, and then working on some of our customized data solutions for some of our partners and clients.
So what's your take on the national blend of models and what the Weather Service is doing there, Brock, at this point?
Yeah, the national blend of models is an interesting take, but I think it's a good one. I really think that from where we're at in the modeling community, from an operational standpoint, we're still very much trying to figure out, what is the best way to take the computing resources you have to optimize your forecast accuracy. And I think the national blend of models is a good way from handling what the atmosphere really is. It's a chaotic system, meaning that you could take one the best initial guess of what the atmosphere looks like at one time, and then integrate that forward with our models. And you can make a slight perturbation to the initial conditions, rerun it, and you can have a completely different solution. That's kind of the very ad hoc way of defining what chaos theory is. So it's really hard to try to accurately depict such a chaotic system. And I think it's, what I like about the national blended models is it's taking the best models that we have. There's a lot of research that goes into that, a lot of effort, and, taking the best you have and combining it in kind of a statistical way to try to best represent what's most likely, at the most likely atmospheric solution, what's likely to be the most accurate forecast. And I think it's a good way to go about it right now, especially from a purely operational standpoint. And I'm really impressed with, how they've come about this, how quickly they've been able to do some of their updates, and just some of the verification statistics. Loosely from what I've seen, I've been pretty impressed with. And it's always kind of fun to see these ad hoc techniques sometimes. Sometimes are the best forecast we can make, and it's kind of always humbling. Throwing a bunch of things into the blender per se gives us, quite possibly, the best forecast. That kind of motivates you as, if that's really the best we can do, what do we need to do different, going forward. So it's fascinating what they've done and some of the results they're getting out of that.
So Brock, talk about the rise of ensemble modeling and the importance of that as we go forward.
Yeah, so I'm a big proponent of ensembles. That's largely what I did for my dissertation work. And it comes down to there's two big areas of uncertainty that will make a forecast bad. When we try to figure out, why did this nor'easter not pan out? It was too far offshore, or why did the severe weather event? Why was it worse, or didn't quite pan out the way we wanted to? It comes down to model error, and there's two main sources for that. And one is the initial conditions that you put into the model. So you have to give it a starting state, and it's the best representation at that time. So for instance, add 0 or 12Z of any day that a model's run, and that's difficult to say. We only have so many observations, so there's a lot of points you have to estimate. What the temperature or the dew point is in between those observations. And then, the second main source of error is from the model itself. So we make a lot of approximations of, we know how the atmosphere behaves from a purely physics standpoint, and we know the equations that can answer that, but we have to solve them in a way that, to make them solvable, we have to make some assumptions about certain things. There's a lot of really fine-scale processes that we can't represent. So we use what are called parameterizations. So with that, kind of leaves the door open for errors. So those two sources of errors are largely what can make a forecast bad. So the best way to represent that is to have multiple different starting conditions, or slightly different, very slightly different tunes of the model, and that's how you can come up with an ensemble. And what that really gives you is kind of an envelope, what I like to call, of possibilities. And within that, if it's a good ensemble, should be your true solution. And then you can start using probabilities or or the ensemble mean to really give you a good idea of what's most likely in terms of a forecast. So personally, I think ensembles are really the way to go to represent uncertainty of the things we just, can't quite handle, at least where we're at right now. And I've been, really impressed to see that being adopted from, the research side of things and the operational side of things. So for instance, Ensup's going to be running the HER model that we're all familiar with, this 3 kilometer WRF AirW model run, and they're going to be running an ensemble of that. And I'm really excited. I think that's going to be a really great way of representing uncertainty with severe weather events. Just having multiple different solutions of a 3 kilometer grid spacing forecast. So it's exciting to see that coming into operations, and I think that's really going to help us represent uncertainty for some of these high impact weather events.
So Mark Taylor, how many of these super brains like this you got over there at Weatherbell now?
Oh, we need Brock. That's all we need. He doesn't sleep. He joked about what he does. I think Brock's laughing. I was messaging him on the slopes today. We've got our office in New York, where we've got I believe it's 6 folks in New York, and we've got people displaced kind of all over the place. Park City, the Northeast. Of course, we've got DeLeo and Bastardi, and several others. So we're about to bring on a few more actually in the next few weeks to help us with the transition and continue to evolve the company and help Brock out, so we don't kill Brock. But we're very fortunate to have him. It's an exciting time, and because Brock was alluding to a lot of neat things going on in the modeling space that we're excited to be a part of.
So what are some of the new products you can hint at this point, Mark?
Well, I think some of the things that Brock mentioned, will be, as new models come out, new variables come out, new ways to run ensembles, we'll be on the forefront of that. I think you'll also see us, you'll see a lot of changes this year with the site, probably with the way we present the models page, some of the products, the public-facing products that we provide. As Brock mentioned, we really, really want feedback, really look to our customers and our clients to tell us what they want, what they need. And that really drives a lot of what we do. So we really tell people, please don't be shy, because all the feedback we get, we really take into account as we go forward and develop new products and new solutions, looking through 2018. So I think we're about to announce a couple of key hires, a new CTO, which I can't say who it is yet, but an industry veteran, which is going to be coming on board, which is pretty exciting for us, which I think is going to make some big things happen. Also, some key partnerships. We announced one with Weather Source at AMS. You'll probably see more key partnerships announced going forward as well, which are very exciting for us. Kind of keep focus on what we do best, and then partner up where it makes sense, both in the B2B space, but also even in the media space for weather graphic systems, etc.
So James Van, every time I hear someone mention the Weather Source partnership or the Weather Source in general, I think back to our little company we started back in 1998.
You were kind of a big deal back then, Bill.
We couldn't decide on a name for that company back then, and that was something that occurred to me in a church pew one Sunday night. And that name lived on in infamy and still does today. So that's pretty interesting. Talk about that partnership for a second, Mark.
Weather Source, I mean, they're probably the leader as far as high resolution data on a global basis. So they provide a lot of historical data and forecast data in the B2B space, primarily companies like in the supply chain, some of your big retailers and others. And couple folks that actually worked with me for WSI way back in the day, and they were looking to us to provide forecasting, basically medium and long range forecasting, to add what they already do. So some of the work, actually Brock's been working very closely on this project, basically leveraging global models, historical weather data, with things like bias correction, to help them not only provide data that's climatological and historical, but also now forward looking. So we're pretty excited about it. They're a great group of guys, very sharp, and what we provide to them is a perfect fit very little overlap. So we're very excited about what that's going to do. They've got a lot of traction, and like I mentioned, really are sharp group of folks, and really have some good momentum in the space. They were at AMS for the announcement, actually, and they had a lot of buzz.
Hey, Mark. So the buzz in the street when Ryan Maui left was that you guys were going to phase out of the model business and take that page down. So that's going nowhere, from what I hear, right?
You got it, James. It's going nowhere, and it's look for some big enhancements and changes this year. Absolutely. And like I mentioned, feedback is great. So if you've got any things you'd like to see, things you want, improvements you want to see, that's actually what we're going to be working on fast and furious the next few months. So it's going.
What we need you to do, Mark, because we've been down the road a long time here. As you know, WSI guy, we've got to get those Weatherbell graphics into these boxes somehow, so we can show them on television easier. Yep. Because the graphics are so good and so well done. And for anybody that follows me, they know that Weatherbell is my source for model graphics. I would just love to have a little easier way of showing those things on television.
Well, it's a great point, James. And in fact, we've actually, I guess we're kind of Switzerland. We've said, but with my background, we would love to be able to do that. And as you know, there's more data becomes available. You don't want to be stuck just having to use what the vendor A, B, or C give you. You want to have the choice to use other content. And so we're actually providing our data, and it's working today in the new Barron system, in the Viz Weather system, and in the Chiron Metacast system. And so as of today, those are where it's working, and we're willing to work with any and all comers to do that. So it's a great point. And we're hoping others will follow going forward. So, but the three vendors we're already working with have been great, and we're going to continue to provide them more and more data as much as they can handle. We're going to feed them the Weatherbell graphics for sure.
Awesome. Well, let's take a quick break here if we can, because we've all got some time restraints. You guys have been here for an hour. I've got to do some television. We're going to bring on Professor Peters and then Tony Rice. We'll come back with Aubrey's email inbox, and we'll do Weather Roundup, picks of the week, and much, much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
For the second time this season, the southeastern U.S. is facing the threat of snow. So I thought it would be a good idea to review the best procedures to measure that white fluffy stuff. The first item is location, location, location. Snow blows around, so it is vital to find a location where the snow appears to be near its average depth. Avoid measuring in drifts or valleys. Ideally, you'll want to find a flat, somewhat open area away from buildings and trees. Some trees in the distance may be helpful in making a windbreak to prevent drifting and thus provide an even distribution of snow. Measure the depth with a snow measuring stick, also known as a ruler or yardstick. Be sure to measure at several locations and use the average. 10 measurements are good, and the average value is the snow depth. When snow has fallen between observation times and has been melting, measure its greatest depth on the ground while it is snowing, or estimate the greatest depth. During heavy snowfall, some of the actual total may be lost due to compaction by the weight of the snow. At these times, it may be best to estimate a slightly higher value if snow has been falling at a heavy rate for several hours. If all snow melted as it fell, you can estimate a total if you think more than half an inch fell before melting, or report a trace for the snowfall. For places that don't get snow often, be careful not to jam your yardstick into grass or wet soil beneath the snow. This will result in false readings. When fresh snow falls on old snow, we need two measurements: the depth of the new snow and total snow depth. Snowboards provide the best method of taking measurements in this case. Sometimes if the old snow has settled or partially melted enough to develop a crust or to be noticeably denser than the new snow, it may be possible to insert the snow stick until it meets the greater resistance of the crust of that old snow, and to use this depth as the amount of new snow. A snowboard can be especially useful for snow measurements. A snowboard can be any lightly colored board that is about 2 feet by 2 feet. A piece of plywood painted white works very well. Ideally, it should be painted white to minimize heating by sunlight. Snowboards are laid on top of the old snow when there is any possibility of new snow falling. push them into the snow just enough that the top of the board is nearly level or just above the top of the old snow. After each observation, boards should be cleaned and placed in a new location. A clean sidewalk or open cement area with some protection from the wind is also a good alternative to using a snowboard. You still need to clean an area off before the snow starts and between measurements in order to accurately measure newly fallen snow. For your weather questions, you can drop a note to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
These winter nights often offer clear views of the night sky, so it's a great time to get outside and identify some constellations. Tuesday's new moon makes for a glare-free view for much of the week as well. A good one to start with is Orion, the hunter. Look to the southeast once it gets dark, and he'll rise high into the southern sky by about 10 p.m. local time. Look for the 3 stars that make up Orion's belt, and then spot orangey Betelgeuse, which marks Orion's shoulder, and then down below, bluish Rigel, which marks his foot. From there, you can spot his outstretched shield to the right and his club overhead. Also look for Sirius, the brightest star in our night sky, trailing Orion by about an hour. If you're an early riser, look for Mars in the southeastern sky before dawn. The red planet rises about 3 a.m. and should be easy enough to spot with the naked eye, though it's a little dim. This week, it's framed inside the skewed square that makes up the constellation Lyra. Once you find Mars, look up and slightly to the right for brighter Jupiter this week. It's about 5 degrees away. If you stretch out your arm and hold up your hand, 5 degrees is about the width of your 3 middle fingers. Jupiter will be about 30 degrees above the horizon. It's about the width of your outstretched hand by the time the sun starts to make itself known on the eastern horizon. Just before sunrise, you might even catch a glimpse of Saturn and Mercury low on the southeastern horizon. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me in RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
All right, time now to see if by chance Aubrey has any email for us this week.
We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
I do have a couple emails, actually. Let me get all situated. Let's see. We are going to... Oh, where's my WeatherBrains folder? All right. This email was sent in from Andrew Baker. I'm not sure if any of us have seen this guy make his rounds across the internet. It's a pretty good chuckle. It's a YouTube video of this guy with his phone basically like this, and he's shouting how a massive blizzard is going to hit Nebraska on Thursday, January 11th. It is kind of funny. I've seen a couple of these videos where you know, everyone takes a cell phone out and they do their reporting on it. So thanks for sending that email. Appreciate that. Marcus Toops sent us a great meme. Did you know that if you stir your gumbo counterclockwise, you'll have a quiet hurricane season?
Wow.
So if enough Cajuns do that, that's probably right.
It's just like what if everyone put their fan in the window and pointed it east, it would blow. Was it Maria? Keep Maria off the East Coast. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think that was it.
So
or, Irma, one of the two. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Marcus. And there's another link. Let me see who wrote this article. This link was from, or this email was from John Wilkinson, and he sent us datacenternowledge.com. The headline is New Supercomputer to Extend NOAA's Weather Prediction by 6 days. And I didn't fully read the article, but apparently their forecast is about to improve by several days, having more computing speed and capacity, allowing us to collect and process even more data, and also from GOES East and GOES S. NOAA hopes these upgrades will lead to the ability to predict extreme events a week or more in advance. So that was an interesting link. And David Gottschalk from Harvard, Illinois, says that David is a high school science teacher and enjoys the show, which is awesome. Among my other classes this spring, David is teaching a meteorology elective. We've been talking a lot about probabilistic forecast, and James, you mentioned preparing the viewing area for a low, high, and snowfall total. They are expecting snow in the upper Midwest today on MLK Day, and the National Weather Service office in Sullivan, Wisconsin, did a great job explaining all the possibilities and probabilities with a video posted on Twitter about 8 to 12 hours before the snow started. So we put in that YouTube link, and that is one of the National Weather Service officers or office forecasters posting a video there with a bunch of their great graphics. So thanks for sending that in, Dave. And that is all I have. I don't believe, nope, that new one is not one of ours. So if you have an email, you want to send it to us, email at weatherbrains.com. Love to hear about what you like about the show, maybe some topics that you have, maybe would like to send us those suggestions, some guest suggestions, along with some contact information, or also some great links you'd love to share with us. Email at weatherbrains.com.
Okay, awesome. So, Bill, I hate to ask you, but I've got to let you kind of finish the show here since they are panicked next door. We are in full-blown panic mode down here. So I will let you do a quick weather roundup and picks of the week and all that. So we'll see you guys next week. The floor belongs to you, sir.
Well, good. Well, you go whip them into a frenzy, James, and we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you next week. Yeah, big event unfolded. Well, big event. I mean, by our standards. Brian Peters, it looks like you can see the front coming into or through Marion County now in northwest Alabama, showing up clearly on the Doppler radar in the form of a fine line there. Brian's going to be muted, or he's gone away. So yeah, we're gearing up for a big event. But
sorry, I was muted.
Oh, sorry. So add in what you were going to say, Brian.
I just, it's the beginning of the end. Millions at risk.
It is, but whatever. We're shooting for a 5-day holiday weekend down here, so interesting. I don't know how many of you saw Kim Kloko a couple of weeks ago on Weather Geeks. I thought she did a fantastic job. I was hoping she was going to be on tonight. Did any of you get to see her appearance?
Did not. Sorry.
Yeah, go back and if you get a chance,
I have to go back and watch it.
I had it DVR'd, but it really was a fantastic discussion, and especially the parts about uncertainty and communicating those sort of things, which you talked about just briefly there too, Brock. So anything else, Mark, that you want to add before we ask for a pick of the week? Or do we have Mark still? Yeah, he's there, but he's away from his camera. Mark?
I think he may have stepped away for a moment.
Okay. Brock, usually about this time we ask for a pick of the week, and I bet you're full of them. Anything that you would like to pitch to us in the form of a website, a book, anything about weather?
Oh, something. So a point of discussion for the remainder of the call, or for
no, just something that you'd throw out there that our audience might find useful or interesting.
Could be a website, book, anything that has some sort of resemblance to weather. we get kind of iffy on that part.
Oh boy, I'm trying to think.
All right, well, we'll come back to you. How about that? Why don't you
no
think
pressure
for a second?
Yeah, let me think.
We'll
There's a few websites
around.
that came to mind from AMS. Give me a moment here, and I'm sure I can find something.
I always draw a blank when Brian asked me to. Aubrey, what you got for us? Pick of the week.
Mine is Ginger Z's book, which is out on Amazon. Big talker in our female meteorologist group. So I haven't read it yet, but we'll be reading it. And of course, I think it would make a great read. So she's had a lot of positive feedback on it from those who have read it so far. So natural disaster. What was it? I've been through them and I am one.
Yeah. Great title.
It's been a long time since we had Ginger on the show. We need to get her back for sure. So thank you for sharing that, Aubrey. Brian Peters, what's your pick of the week?
Well, I was doing a little research on the snowboard and how to make snow measurements there. And I ran across an interesting one on mental floss. Sometimes I question some of their articles, but there was 15 incredibly cool facts about snow. And I think that'll make a good one with all the snow coming across the southeastern United States.
So were there any of the 15 facts that surprised you, Brian?
Most of them I had seen. There were a couple that were a little surprising, but at the moment that was several hours ago, so I don't remember exactly what it was.
I can't remember 15 seconds ago. So Rick Smith out there in Norman, Oklahoma, you got a pick of the week for us.
Yeah, I got what I think is a pretty cool pick of the week. The day we're taping this is Martin Luther King Day, January 15th. And in honor of that, we had a really cool article or paper sent to us by Devin Greeny from Memphis. He sent it to email a few weeks ago. And it's talking about the circumstances that kind of led into the assassination of Martin Luther King in Memphis on April 4th, 1968. And weather played a role in that I was never really aware of. A big snowstorm in Memphis, March 21st and 22nd of that year, resulted in some travel changes and airport closures, and really, really interesting article that he put together with newspaper clippings and everything. So that's my pick of the week. I'd encourage everybody to go check it out.
Outstanding. And Rick, I'll let you describe my pick of the week since you gave it to me.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm sometimes I have like 8 picks of the week just sitting here waiting. So hopefully I can keep people from getting the foghorn. One of the blockbuster talks, I think, of the AMS meeting happened in the Monday presidential town hall meeting. Ada Monzon, who is a TV meteorologist at WIPR TV in San Juan, gave just an amazing presentation on their experience with Hurricane Maria there on Puerto Rico. And her talk, the link is a Facebook Live recording of a Facebook Live that she did of her talk. And you don't think about people in tears at a meteorology conference, but she gave a very emotional presentation. So that's your pick of the week.
Well, and I am thankful for it. Thank you very much. And I hope we're having Dr. Rick Knabb on the show next week. So he will be our guest weather brain coming up. That'll be a lot of fun. So we'll circle back around. Kurt, have you had time to frantically think of a pick of the week?
I was going to say, I thought you were going to throw me in the fire right after Brock there, pass the baton to me.
Yeah, I realized going to Brock early without any warning was probably not really good.
You know how that is when someone calls on you and you're like, wow, I hope they really stall on this one.
We rarely cut our guests any slack.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
I usually cut them a little more slack than I did tonight, but
I got told I had a cool job, so that made me feel good.
There you go.
So I got a book from my mom. Gave me a book for Christmas, and I have yet to read it, but it kind of ties in with what we were talking about earlier with Eddie Aikau and his story and the surf contest at Waimea Bay. But there's a book called, I'm going to butcher this because it's in Hawaiian.
We're getting familiar with Hawaiian here in Alabama now that we're back.
Malama Honua. And it's a story about basically they recreated a ancient a double hold canoe, and they sailed it around the world. And it's basically the story of that and kind of what they found and the different crew members that were on this boat. So I haven't read it yet, but I thought that would something that popped in my head that tied back into kind of what we were talking about with Hawaii. So I'll report back and let you know how it is when I do get some time to read it.
Outstanding. Well, maybe you can call us from Tahiti while you're covering some surf competition out there. But
hey, fingers crossed.
It's a perfect pick of the week. Brian Peters, did you identify that out there on the?
I know I'm having a little trouble because I can't spell it.
Well, email that to me and I'll pass it on to Brian whenever you get a second there. Thank you tonight for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Discussion with you. And Dr. Burkhart, sorry for
first. No.
That wasn't very sportsmanlike of me there.
No, that's right. You can blame Mark.
Yeah, exactly.
So I figured for some of the discussion, us talking a lot about the next generation of models and prediction, and talking about ensembles, I figured since I was talking about the Her ensemble, which maybe not all the listeners had maybe heard of, that is it kind of quasi operational right now. So I just wanted to mention that is out there. The website for it is rapidrefresh.noaa.gov/her HRRR/HRRE. or you can find that, as I did, just by Googling her Ensemble. So that looks like, from what I'm seeing from the pull-down list that's updating, it looks like 2 times a day they're running that. And that is from the Ezreal branch from NOAA there. Out in Boulder has a little page there for some different graphics from the her Ensemble. I'm not overly familiar with these myself. It looks like they got some great variables and probabilities of different severe weather parameters. So for any of the listeners that were interested from that, I recommend checking it out. I know I will be. I think that's going to be really exciting, for some of these upcoming snowstorms and we head into the upcoming severe weather season.
Well, outstanding. It's been a blast having you on the show tonight, too. I see that you got that Wisconsin logo strategically placed there. How about those Badgers this year? They had a great year, didn't they?
They had a pretty good year. Maybe the schedule was a little soft, but no, they I think they got a good system there with Paul Christ, and I think they maybe can recruit a better quarterback for next year. We'll see.
Well, there might be one available from Alabama that might can transfer, since we've got 2 pretty good ones. It looks like I got to go to a game in Camp Randall when we were there for the NWA meeting in 2012, I guess, and nice. It was quite an experience to be there for the jump around.
Yeah, you wouldn't know there were earthquakes in Madison, Wisconsin, but you go around for the start of the for jump around there, and you'll experience it.
Oh, it was a great time. But thank you for being with us tonight. Brock, was outstanding. You're welcome. You guys are welcome back anytime.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Aubrey, anything we need to add?
Nope. I think we're 30 seconds to show. So everyone have a
you
great
better
night.
run.
Thanks.
Good to see you. Aubrey, Brian, anything you want to add?
No, just hope I stay out of the ditches tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. Keep the keep the dirty side of the car down tomorrow, Brian. That'll be really good.
Absolutely.
And Rick Smith, we'll enjoy this Arctic front you're sending us tomorrow. Anything you need to add?
No, just bundle up, stay warm, and it'll be spring before you know it, I think.
Yeah, let's hope. But it's been a cold winter here for sure. But WeatherBrains is the weekly netcast that's all about the weather. We do it on Monday nights generally, and send it out into the world on Tuesday mornings. But always some of the brightest and best minds in meteorology have joined us. It's hard for me to believe we're 2 shows into our 13th year of doing this, Brian Peters. That is ridiculous.
I know.
Somehow we missed our anniversary show because it was a recorded show.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, that's the problem with so many major guys on this show.
Well, we've certainly had a large majority of the great weather brains that are out there, and there's still quite a few more we got to find. But until next Monday night, when Dr. Rick Knabb is scheduled to be our guest, I'll tell you goodbye and hope you have a great week and keep your eyes to the sky.
Absolutely.
All right, Brian. Thanks, Brock.
Thank you, Brock.
Thank you very much, Kurt. And we'll
and
see
Kurt
you
too.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, fellas. I'll send that link over to the book as well.
Thank you.
I'll forward it to Brian. Thank you.
Sure. Have a good night.
Bye.
Yeah. Good night.
Yeah. Bye.
Hey, guys, got to scoot. Thank you all for watching. Have a great week. God bless. We'll see you next week.